Welcome back to Tommy Solo's Famous Friends for part 2 with our conversation with seminal singer from Toronto, Virgil Scott. Welcome back, Virgil.
Thanks, Tommy. Nice to be here again. Part 2. Lovely.
Yeah, this is where we get into the muck and the fun stuff. So where we left off, we were starting to get into Virgil Scott in the 70s. And it wasn't that far into the 70s that your career really started to take off, was it?
Yeah, well, that was, you're out of high school and so forth, and you make a decision. Hey, what am I going to do? What am I going to do now? How am I going to go out in the world and make a difference? And with me singing for about 6 years straight and kind of full-time in the cast of Hair. Although in Hair, by the way, and I wanted to mention, I remember what we talked about in part 1. I wasn't on stage every night or anything like that. There was 3 of us that alternated apart, and so I was on stage quite a bit and weekly for sure, but not every single night. And I think there was a lot of movement within the cast also. And I wanted to mention, during the same time period, Doug Riley was the musical director, although Doug wasn't in the pit band. And that's where the singers from Dr. Music came from. Laurel Ward, Terry Black from his hit Unless You Care back in 1966. Terry was in the cast. There were several well-known, monster great singers in that cast, and it made me a better singer and a better entertainer because I was watching, Salome Bay was in the cast for a while, and, she's marvelous and amazing and spectacular. So there was a lot of learning. And what happened after high school? Well, what happens? You just go out into the world. And so I went on the road for about 7 years straight. And I mentioned to you when we were off air that I used my parents, on my driver's license, I used my parents' address up in Fenelon Falls because I really didn't have a true, proper, solid address for about 7 years, from 1970 to 1977. And was in a band called Tucker for a while. And Mike Reno also auditioned for that band. I don't know why I got it. It was a rock band, and I didn't sing upstairs like Mike did at all in any way, but I got it, I think, because they were kind of riding off of my name from the cast of Hair, is what they thought was going to happen. And it did for the longest time. And we were on the road and went across Canada a whole bunch of times up until about 1977. During that time period, I got a call from Doug Riley, and he said to me, I've got a jingle. I think you could sing. I want you to come down and sing on it. And it was around 1974. I was, 23 years of age. I didn't know what a jingle. I said, I don't know what's a jingle. And he said, it's an advertisement. It's a beer advertisement. So I went down and sang on it for him and learned a whole lot within 2 hours. One is that I could not read the chart. And so kind of slimmed my way through it. But I did get the call, and there was 4 people that were on that recording. That's the way jingles work almost to today. There's a lot of the times the producer and the advertising agency knows the voice they want, but there's still a lot of 3 people will, go down and record it, and then the advertising agency and the client figures out which tone they want and which voice they want. But that's how it went on back then, and there was 4 other people that did it, and I luckily got it.
Quick editor's note, it was a Labatt's 50 beer commercial that Virgil is talking about, and now to push your nostalgia button, here is a clip from said Labatt 50 commercial from 1973.
Been a long day, been a good day, don't want to see it end. Gonna have a new beginning when I get home again. Going home to my world, going home to my dreams. Going home to my world, going home to be. Love the life you're living, enjoy it anywhere. Making friends on the
opened my eyes to a whole other thing also. And I remember some of the singers going, well, what are you singing on those things for, man? And I went, because I've got a daughter and a house and I got to make some payments. And, it's funny, the musicians would come along and ask, and I'd go, well, you teach in the daytime. You teach guitar in the daytime. You've got, a half a dozen students or whatever a week. You make extra money. I'm going to make extra money like this. And it turned out to be very good for me. And
no doubt. And a lot of the people out there don't realize just how hard it is to make a living full-time as a musician. And you're one of the rare guys out there who's actually been able to support yourself through the music by hook or crook. And if that means singing jingles, and for a lot of guys, it's playing seniors' homes during the day and whatever.
All of that.
If you're willing to just be a musician and not worry about being a quote-unquote rock or pop star, that's how you can make a living in the music business. And that's what you did.
Well, I figured around 77, I was 26 years old at that moment. And from as I was leaving here in 71, within there, I wrote music for a Disney film, and I was in L.A. for 9 months. I was in L.A. during the Dominic Triano days, and when Dominic was with James Gang and Roy Kenner was with James Gang, I was there too. Mark Jordan was there, living in Marina Del Rey. That's where he was. I was in Redondo Beach. There was a bunch of us down there, and we were all fishing for work and showing our talents and trying to make contacts with agents. Again, I come back to the style of music that I wanted to do. It wasn't hard rock, and Canada is a hard rock town. And I always wanted that R&B horn band thing. So I was close, but no cigar. So around 77, I met my first, it's an interesting statement, I met my first ex-wife. And I decided to come off the road and to just stay in the Toronto area and establish myself. And I did. And it was the same time period as, everybody was around. I remember Chuck Jackson from the Downchild Blues Band and myself were best buddies. And we sat down one day and I said, how many rooms is there within a 1 hour radius in Toronto? And we just sat one day, and Chuck was singing blues more than me. So he had the blues side and I had the R&B pop side of things, Young Station and Piccadilly Tube. And there's so many rooms. We added up 91 rooms within a 1 hour radius. You and I were talking in segment number 1 about how much work was out there. You could, and at that time period too, if you packed a room and if you did your business correct and made a deal with the club owner, on the contract it might have said $1,200, but you made a private deal off paper saying, hey, out of these 6 nights, if it's packed, I want a taste. Well, the club owner at the end of the week, if he wanted you back 9 weeks later to pack his room again, he would throw you $200 or $400. And then you would throw your guys $50 each and walk away with good money for 1977, 78, 79, 80, blah, 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 blah. Because of my father being self-employed for the last segment of his life, he was self-employed for about 25 years. I saw how an independent person worked. I remember a lady coming in with a fan. My dad fixed things because he was just this Mr. Fix. Bill's Fixed It shop. Lawnmowers and fans and TV. Well, Bill, this lady would come, Bill, this fan's not working. I think it's the cord. Just leave it there, Betty. I'll have it for you ready in 3 days. She'd come back. Well, what do I owe you, Bill? I don't know. Listen, I put a new cord on it. Just put $2 in the bucket. He had this bucket on a table, and she would go over and put a 5 in. And I saw how it worked. And I went, she gave me more money. And he went, if you do it correctly and treat them correctly, most humans are really nice. They're going to do things, they're going to do that for you. And so, on paper, I would say to the club owner, this is survival money, but we pack this place now, and I want a little taste of that. I would actually go to them and do a pie right in the face. I want a taste of this now. Okay, Virg, yeah, you come here 4 times a year for me, and you do real well for me. You know what? Okay. So off the books, right? I went off the books. Okay, Let's figure it out at the end of the week. Okay. And you would get handed some money sometimes if you packed it. And then you find those rooms that you do well in, and you try to hang on to them as long as you can. And there was no computers and networking back then. And, I would get people's phone numbers. And as I'm going to be doing Pembroke in 3 weeks, I would phone my 41 Pembroke phone numbers. It's business.
And we'll be right back after this.
You got to do your business. It's not 4 hours on stage. It's 4 hours in the afternoon, too. Actually, it's a 12-hour day. It's a 14-hour day. But if you're doing your dream and doing what you love, no matter what business you're in, if you're self-employed and you love being a landscaper, it's long, hard hours. But are you really working? I know one thing for sure. You're not stuck in a cubicle.
Ain't that the truth? And you talked about pounding the pavement to get your people out to the shows. I'll make this real short. I had a regular gig at a bar in London that my wife used to manage to talk 20, 30 people into coming out to see us every time. And those 20 or 30 people will begat another 20 or 30 people. And I had broken my finger right before a gig one time, and I had to call on short notice and say, I'm sorry, I can't do it. I can't play guitar. But I've got a couple of other bands that are willing to step up. And the club owner says, but they won't bring in the people that your wife does.
That's right. No, absolutely. It's the music business. I've been given and watched my dad and, Michael Lalonde, the singer of Wireless, and I are best buddies to this day. And Michael and I would cross paths. How you doing? Hey, what's that? What's the Brockdan pay in Sudbury? Oh, Rudy. Yeah. Well, he pays you this, but if you can get me, and so you phone Rudy out of nowhere. He doesn't know you at all, but you drop. Well, Michael Lalonde told me to phone you because he knows my band. Oh, well, I want you in here then. Because Mike does good for him. So, and I know for a fact, because people have come to me, did you know that you got me that job? And I went, no, how did I? Because I dropped your name. Good. And so, in the 70s, there was I was on the phone 4 hours a day, for sure, every day.
Well, I talked to a mutual friend of ours, Bernie Labarge, and we were talking about, and he said to say hello, by the way.
He's a lovely man.
He is. And we talked about the business. And, again, for him, he said none of it was luck. I was out there every day knocking on doors and pounding the pavement. And that's, again, a lot of musicians will just talk about how the business chewed them up and spit them out and whatever, but they're not willing to do the work as part of the business.
Well, it is the music business. So I came off the road, 77, and I got on the phone call for about a half a year and started phoning clubs within the city and a 1 hour radius of Toronto. And as I wasn't working or if I only had a 4-nighter, I'm out 6 nights a week, man. You're out. If you're just working Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, where are you on Sunday, Monday, Tuesday? You're going to other clubs. You're getting on stage with the guys who are buddies of yours to do one song because the club owner is there. You rile up the crowd. And then as you're coming off stage, the club owner comes over to you and goes, Jesus, you have a band because, so-and-so was telling me it's a great band. I went, yeah. Well, can you come in here? Yeah. Well, blah, blah, blah. 6 weeks later, you're in that room. You got to, it's funny, even in the upper echelons, Rod Stewart, he's not at home. He drops in on Jeff Beck gigs all the time.
Editor's note, we recorded this interview just a few days before the legendary master of the Stratocaster and master of every guitar, the great, all-time great Jeff Beck, unfortunately passed away on January 10th, 2023. Rest in peace, sir. Now back to the show.
You've got to be in the loop on a constant. Now that I'm 73, I'm not in the loop I don't have to be in the loop as often. But if I want to know about an interesting gig, I go there. I just went to a spot up in Erin, Ontario, which is about an hour out of Toronto, hour and a half. A spot called the Bush Home. What a beautiful, fantastic room. My buddy Alfie Zappacosta said, Virg, you got to come up and do this room. This is a perfect room for you. You and I are entertainers. You'd love this place. I went up there and saw a nice duo, and I'm like, wow, this place holds 170 people. Really nice, great sound, great stage, great lighting. And I'm like, I want to do a gig here. So, you just constantly stay out here. And so when I came off the road in 77, that's what I did. And I really established myself. And Doug Riley phoned me a lot from 77 to 2000. A lot. Even now that I think of it, I think I did Zoom, Zoom, Zoom for Mazda. That was around 2002. And Zoom, Zoom was on air for about 7 years. And
thanks. I've got it stuck in my head now.
Yeah, sorry about that. A lot of people go, I bought a Mazda because of that. And I went, well, I didn't get any royalties on the buyout of the car. Yeah, it's funny how that all works. And what also went on a constant, fortunately for me, and you got to do your business correctly. And you know what? Be polite. Don't be a jerk. Don't burn bridges. I'm not on the planet to burn bridges. I'm on the planet to make it better for me. And so I'm a good guy. I can actually say it out loud. I've said it for years. I'm a good guy. So I would get called to do background vocals on albums.
Well, you mentioned earlier the audition that Mike Reno went out for, and you said you don't know how you got it over him. But I was thinking that probably personality had something to do with it as well.
Well, it's so funny because when I saw Mike about 5 years ago, Loverboy's out there. Thank God he's out there. I've seen him a few times in the last 10 years, and I said, you and I got to lose some weight, buddy. Anyway, we're both a little bit big. He's even slightly bigger than me. And he says, I should have got that Tucker gig. And I went, yeah, you own an island. I'm still in the clubs.
Yeah, but that was a lucky, because when you talk about recording acts like Loverboy, as you and I both know, there are a lot of legacy acts out there who don't have any money to speak of today. So they were just, I don't know if they had the right business acumen or they were just lucky with the connections, but a lot of the acts that have the record sales don't have the money to show for it.
I think Paul Dean was in enough bands pre-hand to have some business sense. And even the big top shelf, our heroes in bands, have made bad decisions and signed the wrong piece of paper. What I did come 77 into the 80s, I established myself as a mainstay in the Toronto nightclub thing. And then Casino Rama came along, and I put together a Motown show. Again, I reinvented myself and put a Motown show together, and we did Rama and Niagara and Windsor Casino constantly for about 9 years. And then around 2011, 2012, I wanted to pull away. I was, getting older and slightly tired and wanted to pull away. And during that time period, I got a phone call from David Clayton Thomas, and him and I had lunch, and he says, what do you think I should do, Virgil? What do you think my next step is? And I went, I think you should do an album with no horns on it. He went, well, I'm known for that. And I went, yeah, but you'll have this in your back pocket. And I said, you should put Terry Clark, Doug Riley, George Kohler, and Rob Piltz together. And he went, well, that's the dream team. And I went, yeah, that's who you should put together and go into the studio and have your voice produced up front and do some American songbook stuff like Diana Krall and some original tunes and do a really groovy, fantastic CD. And he went, could you do that for me? And I just said, yes. I just jumped. You got to know when to jump, and you got to know when you're ready to jump.
And we'll be right back after this.
And so I produced an album for David Clayton Thomas. I don't know how many people can say that in the world.
Yeah, that's quite a feather in your cap. And as you know, we were kind of alluding to, you know people, you knock on doors, you make the phone calls, you be good to people, and everything comes around. Serendipity, you know. You've had a lot of solid top shelf players in the band. Do you have a regular lineup these days?
No, I don't have a regular lineup. I don't know who has a regular lineup anymore with COVID and whatever. It's just starting to come back slowly. And my age bracket of people some of them are still hesitating to even come out.
Yeah, I'm one of them, you know, and it's a very tricky time.
It's a tricky time. I do some duos. I have a gig up in Wasaga Beach every Wednesday. It's been 7 years now. And we bring in a guest singer. And we have a 4-piece band up there. And the guest is the big draw. I mean, who would want to see me every single week, 7 years in a row? I don't know. But guesting, I've done guesting since 1984. I remember the first time I attempted it, and it all worked because I had a steady Sunday afternoon matinee, and I wanted to bring in a different person every week. That person does their networking. Then when you pack a room, they've got to come early to see you in the first set. And then you bring on the guests. So all of a sudden, within 2 months, I remember, within 6 weeks, this room in Etobicoke we had 200, 300 people a week. Tony Flame from Downchild, Jeff Healy would come in with us as a guest. And I had top shelf monsters, the cream, backing me up all the time, even on six-nighters, all the time. Pat Carey, Michael Fonfera, the name droppings, the musicians out there that are listening are just going to go, oy, yi, yi, yi. And those guys would go off onto their recording acts. Hey, not a Charlie Cooley, Juno Award winner. And so you have 3 and 4 guys per instrument on your great list, and you don't worry about it after a while.
Well, you know, I was looking up some of your videos on YouTube, and right away I spotted Burley LaBarge on guitar and Whitey Glenn on drums. Now,
yeah.
Yeah, and I don't know who the other awesome players were, but I guess it's just part of being in the business for so long and being good to people and so on, and building your reputation. But you have played with an awful lot of good players. I mean, Terry Draper from Klaatu was in your band. I know you've rubbed shoulders.
Yeah, well, Terry was the drummer of The Innocents.
Okay.
The Innocents of Virgil Scott. And we're still best friends. I'm seeing Terry in a couple of weeks. He's in Florida. And
there's another guy who's managed the business to the point where he's doing really well for himself. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. He's got business sense.
And the business is funny. It's fickle and it changes. It's cyclical. You know, we go round and round, but...
And it's a lot like any other business. If you don't have a business sense, you're not going to be in business very long.
Absolutely.
It's the music business. There is that side to it that you've got to do, and or you will be taken advantage of, and you won't be in business long.
Absolutely. Now, when I reached out to you a week or so ago about doing this show, you said that you were going to be traveling to do some recording.
I go every week somewhere. I wonder where that was. A week ago?
Yeah. So I'm just wondering, what's next for you?
Well, there's a CD that's in the works. I'm hoping it's coming out in the spring. I started it in 2007 with Michael Fonfera, who passed away 3 years ago. And Michael was a real mainstay in my life constantly. And he is, every keyboard player in Canada knows who Michael Fonfera is.
Absolutely.
Anyone over 50 years of age. And Michael was with major recording acts like Lou Reed and Rhinoceros and John Lee and the Checkmates and Electric Flag. And Michael was on that very first Rough Trade direct-to-disc album. Michael's on all the things Downchild recorded in the last 25 years. He's the guy. And I started something called Some Piano Friends and Me. And it's just one song, and it's 14 different piano players. And it is the who of piano players in Canada. And they're doing one song, and I'm doing the vocals. And it's songs that I've always wanted to sing. I don't use these songs live when I'm performing. It's just tunes I've always wanted to sing. So it's really interesting. Yeah. I'm right in the middle of that, and it's taken a long time. I forgot about the recording with Michael, and when he passed away, I went into a bit of a funk and sitting around moping myself, and then I went, where the hell is that recording? And then I found out, with finding the stick, that I have Grant Slater and Dennis Kelly and Rob Gusevs also. And so I started up with having those four from 2007, and I've added on. And well-known guys, I hope to record with Gary Bright next week, and Gary is with Brian Adams. Gary and I have known each other a long, long time, and I'm hoping he can do the song I want him to do. And we're hoping that we can cross paths within the next couple of weeks and get him on it. I'd love him on it. And all of the above, that's happening. I'm right in the middle of putting my No Socks tour together for Florida. This is my 9th year. And I just got a gig yesterday for 4 locations in Mexico in February. So as I mentioned before, I'm a lucky guy. I got a horseshoe up there. And I'll tell you, it's a little painful every once in a while, but it's worth it.
Well, I, for one, firmly believe that we make our own luck, and you are very good at making your own luck.
Yeah, it's fantastic, man. It just keeps rolling. And I have my Wasaga Beach Wednesday, every Wednesday, and I get to see a best friend of mine, guest vocalist, Wild T. Tony Springer comes up, Sil Simone, Cheryl Luscombe out of Kitchener, Aaron Solomon, all the folks that are known in the clubs. They come up to Wasaga. There was 111 people on the last one. We've been off for 4 weeks, but our last one was with Chuck Jackson from Downchild. There was 111 people in a small room up in Wasaga. I really truly come back to that. This kid, me, at 15, 16 years of age, in the neighborhood, just so excited on a Friday afternoon, knowing that we were going to play at the church basement dance. I still get excitement walking into the door of any club, even if it's just to see friends of mine. As I open the door, I just go, oh, here we go. It's just electric. It's magic.
I often say that music is the doctor, and I need to have my prescription filled. We lived through the golden age of rock and roll, and we got to enjoy that time where you could just live out of your suitcase and, play 6 nights a week and travel for the 7th day.
Right.
And that was awesome.
Absolutely.
And like you say, we don't know what's going to happen down the road.
No.
I do have a sneaking suspicion that maybe there's a book in the works for you.
Yeah.
And I don't want to get into too much that isn't done yet. Having said that, you have a website.
Yeah. www.virgilscott.com.
Yeah, and we can pretty much stay on top of what you're doing through your virgilscott.com website. Listen, Virgil, this has been great fun for me. I don't want to take up your whole day, but it's been a real pleasure.
I could talk all day.
And me too. With somebody, this is the thing about us musicians. We have this affinity. But listen, I want to thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to do this with me. And until next time, cheers.
Great work, Tommy. Thanks so much for having me, man. Take care of yourself. Happy New Year.
And you. Well, that was absolutely a fun conversation. Virgil Scott, quite a guy. And hey, if you're in the province of Ontario, southern Ontario, and you have a chance to make it out to Wasaga Beach on a Wednesday evening, you might want to check out Virgil Scott and his guests. Good time to be had for sure. And here for your listening pleasure are a couple of clips from virgilscott.com. First, his cover of the classic Groovin', and his own tune, Here I Am. Enjoy.
Groovin' on a Sunday afternoon. I couldn't get away too soon. Can't imagine anything that's better. The world is ours whenever we're together. There ain't a place I'd like
Tommy Solo's Famous Friends is a one-man production, meaning that I've done all the work, including recording, editing, guest acquisition, etc. The theme song for Tommy Solo's Famous Friends is a clip from my original composition, The Burn. All rights reserved. And hey, if you like the show, why not help us out, buy me a coffee, subscribe, hit the like button, and until next time, cheers.